what is going to make you stand out is telling leaders what they don't know about their business. You cannot automate something that, one, you can't do yourself. I don't go out and make coding agents because I don't know how to code, and I don't want to step and tell people how to do their job when I've never done it, right?
All right, welcome to another episode of the RevGenius podcast. I'm joined with Angelo Quiambao, go-to-market engineer at Intellistack.
Excited to chat, Jared.
So one would love to understand a little bit about your background in Intellistack to help set some context with the discussion.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, running as the AI go-to-market engineer over here at Intellistack, what that entails essentially is, my job is to create agents, scale them across our go-to-market motion, and most of all, help our team see success, pipeline revenue, and efficiency across sales, marketing, RevOps, and all the other underlying go-to-market teams.
And what does Intellistack do?
Essentially, they're a document workflow automation platform for the last 20 years, known as FormStack. But as of recently, getting into the Agentic AI workflows, primarily helping, healthcare industries, insurance, higher education industries with workflow, form fill, all those sorts of documentation that require a lot of strict security implications like HIPAA, SOC 2, all that.
I love it. Yeah, because I remember FormStack. I didn't catch the rebrand.
Same
That's
company,
super cool.
yeah.
Now, why did they decide they needed a GTM engineer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the world is shifting towards go-to-market engineers. And, when I approached their leadership and we had a great conversation, it wasn't the conversation of can we replace our sales team with a go-to-market engineer? It's how do we boost their efficiency and scale? And I think that's the way to approach it. And I like the way they had their goals lined out. And that's where a go-to-market engineer, I feel, can help, is to scale processes that work and scale high converting workflows or create them, if need be.
So before Intellistack, did you have experience in GTM engineering, or what's your background?
Yeah, I came from a company called Qualify. They were recently acquired by Salesforce. I started there as a BDR. I did sales outbound prior to that for the last 5-6 years. I think the benefit of that is I was able to see outbound back in the day, with your headset and your trackpad. And then to the motion where people are starting to use ChatGPT to help with emails. And then now it's fully integrated into enterprise scale. At Qualified as a BDR, I was able to be there at an early period, help them sort of frame a lot of their outbound frameworks to where we've seen a lot of success. Then we agentified that on the outbound realm. We saw a ton of success with our flagship product at Qualified being an inbound agent, and then us creating outbound agents on the side. I think we were able to see over $60 million of agent generated pipeline there. But yeah, it was great.
Now, the GTM engineer role is one of the fastest growing roles in go-to-market. I think you mentioned 200% growth year over year. There's so much noise around what it actually is and does. Is it RevOps renamed? Is it outbound agencies rebranded with the use of some better products than they had years ago? Out of curiosity, what do you think the biggest myth about go-to-market engineering is?
It's a great question. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I think the biggest myth is that you can automate everything. You can automate your go-to-market with one person or a number of agents. I think that's an absolute myth that needs to be distinguished because it's also hurting, the expectations of what a go-to-market engineer does. And the biggest part of my job currently is to set expectations with different levels of our go-to-market and departments, but also operate on that level. So if you think I can automate outbound and get us unlimited revenue, then you're going to be very disappointed when I tell you we need to figure out who our ICP and map out all these and align this, make sure we're in compliance with security. All of that is the biggest myth. So don't try and automate outbound because it shouldn't be. There should be humans in the gate.
And to be clear, I was so interested in having this conversation because you showed me some numbers, right? You created a solo outbound agent, a team co-pilot agent, and I'm seeing 190 meetings generated from the solo outbound agent for 15.4 million in pipeline source. The team co-pilot agent, 132 and 13.7 combined for Q1, 322 plus meetings and 29.2 million in pipeline source. That's pretty incredible. How long did it take to do that?
A long time. It took about, I would say, it was always a work in progress. I think that was the best iteration of it, but it worked in tandem because we drilled in a real outbound process done by humans that converted at a high scale. So our human team was really out there, pipeline generation machine, and we just scaled the highest converting workflows into an agent and scale that across a higher TAM instead of the other way around is scaling across a higher TAM with unproven workflows, right?
Yeah, and you built quite a few workforces, so to speak,
Yeah.
different agents or teams of agents to do different things. Would love to be walked through like each of them, like the end-to-end agentic outbound workforce, the ICP qualification agent, and the problems you were trying to solve along the way.
Sure. Yeah. I don't have access to the actual agents anymore, obviously, because I'm at a new company, but I think there's a great way that I look at it. And I think of agent building or an agentic layer to your go-to-market motion in 7 different layers. I think in order to have any sort of agentic motion within your go-to-market, you need these 7 layers. And it's like layer 1 is the targeting, the data, your ICP, right? Your triggers, your signals. Why are you reaching out to these folks? Your routing, decisioning, which agent does what is their decision-making capability? Now, and then you need the content, the assets. Are they just generic outreach or gong sequences, or are they hyper-personalized? What are the campaigns and outbound plays they'll run? And then the knowledge for that, right? Agent battle cards for competitors, for replies, for objections, value statements. And then I decide, where does the human intervene? Where is the decision making for approval? And that always stays no matter what, because if you know what you're doing and you look at an email, you'll be like, that sucks. If you don't know what you're doing and you see an email, you'll be like, it made an email. That's great. Send it, right? We can also ingrain those into agents later on as QA agents. But the biggest thing too is there needs to be a layer for feedback. Like every week with my agents, the reason they got so good so fast is because I treat them like they're employees. I will ask them at the end of the week, what did you do well? What did you not do well? Where can you improve? And how do you feel you did towards hitting your goal and your KPIs and your metrics? And they sometimes they'll outline everything you need, and then you can rebuild upon that. And long-term memory about all the highest converting ones, similar to a human, like you get a good email that leads to a meeting, let's study that. Let's replicate that. So those are like the 7 layers that I went by and how I build all my agent workforces, and they're all necessary.
So one cool takeaway there, and I think you have this written out, right? Like in terms of
Right.
the framework. Can you share your screen? Because we'll dive
Sure.
into each layer.
Absolutely.
The part that I wouldn't be surprised if more teams aren't doing is the goals you set for your agents, similar to employees. Like, can you walk me through like the goal setting, how you figured out what appropriate goals would be? Did you just pick a number out of the sky? Did you use what the board wanted you to hit type of thing and then back channel, which you don't want to give to any human directly because it's probably inflated? How'd you goal set and level set? And then how did you set that up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for any go-to-market engineer, to establish goals, you need to know, first of all, what the goals are from the board level to the C level, to the VP level, to the manager level, to the BDR level, right? Depending on what agent you're making, because all of them have different goals aligned to the same goal. So if I report to our chief sales and revenue officer, typically go-to-market engineers report to VP RevOps, like if their goal is to boost pipeline by 1 million for the next, 2 quarters, like that's their goal. The managers, that trickles into a metric goal of we need 50 more meetings per month, something like that. So understanding the world of every single leader and every single part of the go-to-market motion will help you sort of speak your language and then establish the goals for the agent. So if we have an agent that does only emailing and the main
Out of
goal,
curiosity, if in your example, if you have to do 50 more meetings to hit your number, right? Like assuming 20% conversion rate, whatever ACV, how do you pick what the team owns and how to push humans? And what does the agent take from that? And is it like a sliding scale? As the agent starts, you want the team to own more. And then as the agent picks up, the agent can own more.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to think about it. A crawl, walk, run approach, right? For any organization, we have the agents start targeting known areas that are lacking like bandwidth from the team. So say maybe like pre and post event follow up, or there's a bucket that needs to be attacked but isn't for some sort of reason. That's where we would put the agents to prove efficacy, to prove their architecture and how they work across the different systems. As they start to show more and more positive outcomes, then they become more and more integrated with all of our team. I think at my last gig, we started that way, but by the end of it, it was a required KPI. It was ingrained into the workflows of every single rep. Like, you must use the agent for X amount of emails.
Now, walking through this layer one targeting and data, we know that this is an underrated challenge, right? Like, because it's not just I'm working with companies over 100 employees in North America, RevOps, tech, go into Apollo and no shade on Apollo, like go into your tool of choice, let's say a single tool. Let's size up the TAM or the SAM, right? Like what do you set up intricately to do that?
Right. I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Anyone can say we target marketing folks, we target IT folks, we target, cybersecurity folks in enterprise. What does that mean? And again, for go-to-market engineers who come into a process where maybe they don't know who they target, or maybe there is no ICP, you must have the knowledge to sort of create that, right? Understand the product that you're selling, know how that aligns with marketing. I mean, Intellistack's been around for 20 years, so they don't have, that sort of problem, but I can see areas where, that's not clearly defined. Tools like Apollo and ZoomInfo have done a great job of incorporating their tools into MCPs for, agent use and for go-to-market engineers, but they cannot decide the process nor the ICP for you. It needs to be a mixture of RevOps, marketing, sales, and then speaking with the BDRs themselves, like who generates meetings.
Well, you said something interesting. Your company's been around 20 years, so they don't need that. I think that's a perception, right? Like there might be more meat on the bone, and there might be quicker deal cycles to be had and more focus. Did you find that? Like by just like adding a bunch of nuances there?
And again, I've only been here around 6 weeks, so that is TBD. Okay. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Maybe there are other verticals that we appeal to that we historically have not been able to reach out to. And I think that's the beauty of the agents. You'll learn very quickly that we may appeal to these, or no, that messaging does not work, right?
What tools are you using to create layer ones?
We use ZoomInfo internally. Obviously, all the other AI tools like, the LLMs like Claude, GPT. I'm a big fan currently of this tool called Vaughn. They're made by Rattle. Yeah, I use them heavily. Big fan of them and everything they're doing over there. But I think that's been helping me sort of establish this targeting layer, so to speak.
Awesome. Walk me through layer two, the trigger and signal.
Probably one of the most, but depending on the product, one of the hardest things to identify, right? The trigger, we used to go based off intent, right? 6 Sense intent, demand-based, marketing intent, MQLs. But I think with how much data is out there, intent is almost dead, right? It's more like, why do we need to reach out to these people, and why would they want to take a meeting with us if we're talking about outbound? So triggers and finding them, you can find this externally, and I try with like ZoomInfo, but I think it really comes from understanding the product. I've watched over 500 gong calls, with different industries, and first 10 minutes of any gong call, they'll tell you why they took the meeting. To me, that's a trigger. If we see similarities there, it's something that like our internal data, every company's internal data is something that no one else can query, and what we have as a weapon. External data is what agents and every other AI can find. It's what makes it generic.
Yeah, so I understood. I almost call them commoditized signals, right? Like job change, funding announcement, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
They're a signal, but they're not necessarily a signal you should act on. Talk to me about operationalizing. So the first 10 minutes of the call, theoretically, you're probably able to just, if you have the right setup, query the call recording, the slew of call recordings, and say, what's the first reason that they said, or the most prominent reason, right? And then from there, how do you make an agent find that? Like what are some of the examples theoretically of things people have said?
Yeah. And one caveat with that is you can query it and you can just ask an AI to do that. But I like to watch them, because the translation of what the AI thinks is the problem versus me having done outbound or having done sales could be different, could differ, could be the same, depending on the model you use. But, when the AE starts a disco call, it's like, what prompted you to take the meeting? It's like, does the AI know if it's inbound, outbound, partnership, renewal, right? These are all different buckets. Like if I'm in the business of net new meetings, I need to know why they took this meeting. And most commonly people have a pain sort of like, this competitor is not working out for us, or lately AI mandate, right? We have an AI mandate, or depending on who it is, like C-levels have more of a broad level pain, but then the tool owners, the ones who feel the pain, have direct product level pain that they need, help with. So understanding that, then we can make our battle cards, value statements, intros, why, right?
So different pains for different personas. So you can get like real granular with your outreach to a founder versus a sales director.
At the enterprise level, like generic is not enough, right? Like everyone is reaching out to that IT director or that, chief marketing officer of Netflix. Like how many people are emailing them? Like what is going to make you stand out is telling leaders what they don't know about their business. From 500 calls we've seen, people in your role typically feel this, right? I mean, obviously that's not the intro, but that's how we become experts, right?
More potent than I saw you commented on this competitor's of ours post. You might be in the space, although that signal shouldn't be discounted, but it's probably not the main one.
Yeah. I mean, it's all just layers, right? Like it's not what we base things off of, but the more, the better.
Now, layer 3, routing and decisioning.
Taking that raw data and turning it into a decision. Putting your best outputs or best decision makers' brain into an agent, right? If I'm the best outbounding rep on this company, then I probably should be making the outbound agent. If you're not, and you walk into a company and they have a bunch of BDRs doing well, like find out what the top BDR does and scale that. Where are the real inconsistencies within their own process? And having the agent have that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go. Just stopping on the point. Did you say you should have the best outbound rep build the agent themselves?
Or work in tandem with them, right? Like, because they know 100%. The ins and outs of it. Like, when you dupe check a lead in Salesforce, this is the process, versus asking someone above that or using what you've done before. Like, every company has a different process for how CRM intake or dashboards are made, or how we generate leads. Like, those need to be ingrained for the company specifically, not just, we can add 50 leads tomorrow and blow all through your Zoom Info or Apollo bank, right?
I love that. Working in tandem with the rep, or the rep doing it and you bringing it into your ecosystem and fine tuning it or integrating it or both, is something we don't hear enough about, I think, right? Like it's kind of like if reps are doing something, I sense that they hoard it as their secret sauce. Building this culture of finding the best way and letting the people involved do it. Like I just did that with my team. Like we brought on somebody to handle some GTME stuff, but like I realized there was a disconnect between them and the team. So I'm pushing the team to build what they need when they need it, and like communicate and like really take an ownership of that, because nobody who's not involved in the process is going to know it as well as you. They might know how to build it better than you, but they're not going to know what to build better than you.
1000%. I think that's the best way to approach it. And, companies ask me like, what's the first thing you'll build when you get here? I have no clue. I don't even know what the problems are, right? Like I'm going to spend a lot of time understanding internally what's going on. And areas where I'm not an expert in, like I don't know product marketing as well as it should. I don't know the intricacies of RevOps and building and doing all that. So I will lean on their expertise. Like the agents in go-to-market are a culmination of every single department's highest converting workflow. So that way everyone agrees upon them. It's not competing. It's only helping accelerate what's working.
Either highest converted or if they don't have any or many, biggest impactful one that you create together, right?
100%.
Now, what's the fourth step?
Content and assets. I think something that gets skipped upon. The same way you train a BDR, like you give them sales enablement material, but I think what a lot of companies have now because of AI is a lot of data, a lot of AI enablement material, all that good stuff, but they don't have context. The agents need context, and that is what the AI go-to-market engineer would bring. When you see a head of IT, you say this. When this reply comes, you say that. If this comes, do that, right? Like these are the contextual knowledge that needs to be built in from understanding of the role. You take your sales enablement material on all your playbooks and then turn that into what I call agent battle cards, right? Like quick knowledge bases or context files that the agent can reference when it comes across any scenario. This will save you a lot of time in reiteration, hallucination of the agents, misfirings, bad emails, just a ton of, like, probably one of the more important parts. Like, the only thing that predicates an agent doing well is if it says the right things. Otherwise, it's just AI slop like everything else. And that is the last thing you want. And because you lose trust within the organization, but then it also hurts your email domain, all that good stuff.
Now, I think the word context, in the header here might be missing because sometimes content and assets alone are based what the internal team thinks is best. And if you take that as is, you'll stay on brand 100%, right? But it doesn't necessarily like you don't know if that's the best thing to show them. Understood that if you're working for a bigger company going to the enterprise, that the best thing that's not in your queue of things might need to get approved before using it. Understood. But are you building in feedback loops in each one of these steps to say okay, cool, you gave me 50 pieces of content, you classified it based on verticals, personas, company size. I want to know, because essentially your content and assets is your hypothesis to tested hypothesis, right? Of what
Yes.
of what they need to see. And maybe it's work to get you here, but you might not have a motion to get you further with that. And I'm layering into layer 4 because sometimes the context isn't always used in the content because there might be new context that came out since Claude dropped, their newest model, right? If you're Canva or something selling to the enterprise and you're having a fine time, and then Claude Design drops, and now you're hearing that time's not fine, theoretically, you could act quicker than a content team, perhaps, like in real time. You could test quicker, that's for sure.
100%. And I lean on the expertise. Like, say I were to create better content, top of funnel content that I need for my messaging, I'm in contact with every single leader of the go-to-market, right? Like, can you approve this quickly? Is this okay? Is this on brand? This is my goal. This is my, MO. This is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm trying to evoke. And these are the results. Like, every single change, every single thing that I do needs to be aligned with every single part of the organization. And that's from security to marketing to sales to RevOps, on all different levels, right? Like, without the buy-in of the leaders, it's nothing. Basically, what I mean by content and assets, like, there's internal content and assets, but then there's agent content and assets that you would need to create as a go-to-market engineer, and like a value bank, persona, buyer committees. If these aren't built yet, you need to build them, right? Proof point libraries. You can probably get these from marketing. If not, you got to create them. But then even on a deeper level, outbound reps know, if you're doing cold email, exactly what hook or exactly what sort of plays to run, GTM context, everything about your company. Like, these are our leaders. These are basically as if you're training a real BDR, and nothing more, nothing less, right? Enough to do its job. You don't want to give it, MCP access to every single system and then say, just go find it. It's a waste of money and credits for sure. But
are you having your
simple.
agents add suggestions to the knowledge base, like this type of content, or this came up in 5 different calls and I don't see any content for it, and stuff like that?
Yeah. So like, that's the 7th layer, which is like the feedback loop. So if like they go about their week and they're like, hey, I don't know if you've noticed, but like we appeal a lot better, higher reply rate for these 10 people. I'm like, okay, let's add that in, and it will add it in for you. Right.
I love that. What's the 5th layer?
Yeah, let's go back to that.
And what I love the most about this, all the best GTM teams operate like this, but some people, when they're started, they think that they could just take like a tool, enter the name of your favorite tool, that allows you to create tables of tons of ICP, layer in signals, probably that everyone else is going after, and just rip it and have success. This isn't the year 2020 anymore. That actually probably worked in 2020, 2021, but like you have to be way more thoughtful.
Yeah. And maybe there is a difference between like an AI go-to-market engineer versus just a GTM engineer, right? Like, are you orchestrating a system or are you operating a system? And I think there's like maybe levels to that.
Well, we're talking about all fundamentals and conversations internally that any engineer should probably be having. And if they're not having it, and people that use AI the most probably will have the biggest internal conversations before doing it, right? And like the deepest and spend a day like diving in, talking tomorrow, like talking to different teams and then automating the hell out of it, right? Like I
Yeah.
think that's what
Yeah.
Davida at Clay said. He's like, you know, I don't care about tools. Like we talk to
Yeah.
understand. Of course we use Clay, but if we didn't, it would be fine. And, you know, we're talking about these processes so much, so in depth with humans. And then of course, we're automating the heck out of it.
That's the key thing, right? You cannot automate something that one, you can't do yourself. Like I don't go out and make coding agents because I don't know how to code and I don't want to step and tell people how to do their job when I've never done it, right? And I still stick to that, right? I know how to do outbound very well, probably with the best of them. So I'm able to automate that. And I've learned about RevOps. I've learned about marketing. I've learned about sales in general, full cycle, right? And these are things that could be learned, but we're not automating our AE's jobs because it takes a long time. Those are jobs that humans need to stay in the loop. And I think, that's a good segue like into layer 5, right? Delivery and compliance for, say this is for email shops or email outbound. It's probably easier than creating a voice agent. But one of the more important things is delivery and compliance, with your IT department, with your company's domain and how you're sending emails through, right? When I see people say they've automated outbound, they've sent 10,000 emails per day, like the only thing I can think of is like, oh, fried their domain, right? And
So they have 100 rotating inboxes in a smart lead or something.
right. I mean, that's great too as well, but it's also like Google and what they're doing with Gmail is preventing cold outreach. Like, they've never been a fan of it. It's not a secret. Like they do a lot to protect their users' inboxes from spam. And there's a lot of it. AI slop going out at scale, and you need to get past that by showing, familiarity with your prospects and not making it generic. Like I used to train younger BDRs and I would tell them, would you reply to that email or like what's different about that email? And like the agents can do that at scale. So when we think about delivering compliance, it's how many inboxes are you using? How many emails do they send per day? Are they intelligently sending this? Is it in compliance with your DKIM or your SPIF requirements? What is your current domain health? And then what tools are you using? Outreach, Gong Engage, or pure Gmail, right? Like does automation hinder open rates, reply rates, all that good stuff? Because if you're not tracking pipeline and revenue, you can't track pipeline and revenue in the first 2 weeks. Maybe you can, right? Depending on the organization. But at the enterprise level, the first metrics you're going to sort of track are replies, opens, engagement, sentiment of that, and overall efficacy of the agents and architecture. You can't. And if you send 2,000 emails and none of them got through and none of them got replies, you have to know if that's, a domain thing or if it's a messaging thing or if it's an agent thing, and you need to know fast so you can fix it, right?
Now, are you also cold calling and LinkedIning in the delivery and compliance? Because I get that you might not have built an outbound agent and all indicators are it's not a good idea yet, but you are doing a lot of other things so that they cold call the right people. And maybe there's a signal for when they should pick up the phone or use their power dialer or whatever there. And then also there's looking at when cold calls come in spam and understanding, that's probably a function of the dialer, I'm sure, but managing up to those people to either get that to stop happening or move to another solution. And then with LinkedIn, there's different nuances for deliverability and different levels. Like,
Yeah.
are you, so I guess the question is like, what are you doing with those networks? And then like expound on where the humans have to take initiative and do something.
Yeah, that's a good point. LinkedIn, very complicated channel, but very lucrative in return. There's a lot of tools that quote unquote automate and dodge their filters, but I am not a fan of those because LinkedIn is for what? For connecting with professionals. So if I'm an AE, if I'm a BDR, like just do that yourself. Like you can't outbound it. I mean, you can outbound at scale in LinkedIn, but you would have much better results if you just personally message 2 sentences to the actual high value contact that you want and research them, right? Like we have agents that can identify who to reach out to. We have agents that can surface the right phone number and the right prospect to an AE or a BDR to call. But as of right now, I don't like automating those platforms. Cold calling, I don't pick up cold calls and I'm not even that high up in the ring, right? So I can only imagine, the efficacy of it depending on the product. But if we have an AE call, someone they're familiar with based on a trigger, it's a highly relevant cold call. And I'd rather have our AEs do 12 cold calls to highly relevant people. Like the agents follow the same principle. We used to send a lot of emails per agent. I was probably sending like 500, back in the day, but now they send about 30, 35. And our reply rate almost quadrupled.
And are you sending it from the core domain?
Well, yeah, previously, yeah.
At 30 to 35, you could play with that. Anything below 50 is probably fine, to be honest, right?
And I was running like 25 different inboxes, right? So then that's how you scale it.
Got it. And even when the AE or the SDR is required to do something like take an action on their own, do you have systems set up to ensure that they hit the minimum number of actions per day? Like essentially agents managing reps?
Not really agents managing reps. I think everything that I make is tracked on a Salesforce dashboard somewhere, right? Like it needs to be visible for all leadership to see. So we have like an agent dash that I create, Salesforce fields that need to get put in there for tracking, fields that the agents are allowed to mark, not mark. These get marked daily basis, weekly basis, and then we can track KPIs from there, similar to how you would with a human rep, but never an agent being like,
Yeah, I know. An agent micromanaging a human probably isn't good. A KPI saying you need to hit 80% of every human activity. Otherwise, you don't get your bonus or whatever, probably better on the macro scale, right?
You bring up a good point. Like maybe if we have a rep who's, struggling a bit on metrics, the agents can probably maybe identify that and, kind of supplement their production on that end. Yeah.
I think thinking through it, I think putting a KPI to ensure that humans do human things from an activity standpoint, and I hate to say that if you trust your process enough, like more activity doesn't mean more meetings, sure. But like if you're giving them gold, they should be hitting 80 to 90% of the gold, understanding 10 to 20%, whatever. And then like if they're not hitting their numbers and they're not hitting that, then that's a flag. If they are hitting their numbers and they're not hitting that, dive in deeper to see like what's working, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting. I mean, I don't think I've necessarily given the agents ever, like, you need to hit 500, because what I've seen with the model changes, depending on what model you use, like they will really try and hit that goal, even if they're incapable of doing it, like, with a tool broken or something, right?
I don't think agents should be given that goal, but I think if you say humans, you need to call these 20 people today because something they did within the last 24 to 48 hours happened, and it's going to be like higher value today. And then you tested it to see like, okay, let's test one group without this, right? Like, and see like who's calling 72 days later, see like the success on those prime ICP layered with signals people based on that. And then you could like reverse engineer like what the timeline needs to be, if there needs to be a timeline, because maybe just calling up that quarter is fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about timing and how fast you reach out to the person during their period of interest, right? It's like, how can we get you in for a meeting when you're interested? And if you're not, how do we boost that intent till we get there? And, the agents can help with both of those things.
Let's go to layer 6, human in the loop. I feel like I keep foreshadowing the next step here.
Yeah, you're helping me out here. But essentially, it's what we've been talking about this whole time. In my world, in my perspective, there will never be a point in time where my agent will run without me in the loop. I'm not saying I approve every single task. Think of it, a company that we use or a vendor that we use, Relevance AI, they have a great analogy about agents being like a Tesla car, right? Like you start off with supervised and then full self-driving with supervision, and then you go full autopilot, where you're not looking at the road, hopefully not. But agents are sort of the similar like pathway. If we have a low value task, but needs a lot of mass, activity towards it, say like cleaning out, an Excel sheet, whatever, right? Filing these, organizing that, like maybe you can run that on autopilot. But anything customer facing, anything that goes out with, our AE's names or BDR's names, my name, maybe we have a checkpoint in there. Trust comes from, the quality and the production of it. Obviously, when we were sending like thousands of emails per day, I was unable to check 1,000 of them, but I would check, each campaign, look at a couple, and then send the rest through. I think that's sort of like the realm that it lives in. But then as a go-to-market engineer, you have to know what good looks like. Is this a good email? Like when leaders are saying, why is it not working? You need to have an answer that is correct and then a solution, not just, oh, our domain's bad or the messaging sucks. Like you're in charge of that now. So always knowing what approval loops to have, anything customer facing really, I have as a supervisor.
And then how do you set up the feedback loops?
As of late, I mean, the building has become so, advanced these days. I set up all of my frameworks and all of my decision making almost like as if I'm their manager, and I put that into an agent. And I put, today's best building practices. Maybe I can show you what that looks like. Let's see if I can pull this up. But essentially, I have this agent. I used to do it manually, and I still do. But nowadays, I have this agent check all the other agents running as a separate. It's separate from, the other builds, so that it's more siloed, and then it can rank, organize, and then judge efficacy of them. Let's see if I can pull it up here. And we have, here. Can you see this agent right here?
Yeah, zoom in.
Yeah. This is Relevance AI, the platform we use for hosting, but
They're a
essentially
sponsor of RevGenius. Absolutely love them. What a nice platform.
Love them. Yeah. Big fans of them. And essentially it's like, just has all the rules. And then you'll see like knowledge bases you can input here. When it runs though, this is what I get back either via Slack, via email, whatever have you. I mean, I'm in this platform probably daily. I said, every day, give me a check on each of our agents. What is broken? So this agent that it did here, it had a broken template. Tool references were wrong. Overall health score 75 out of 100, similar to like a manager looking at their reps. So we need to know what to do and then how to optimize it. This agent also has the ability through Relevance MCP to fix its agents that it sort of optimizes. So if it checks an agent says this tool needs fixing, it fixes it. And then we're good to go for the next day. That's how I check now. That's the feedback loop I'm doing. But before that, obviously it's very manual, which is okay. And I think in the beginning it needs to be. But yeah, arguably the most important step is that feedback loop and that optimization, because goals change, messaging changes, everything changes so fast, especially if you're working for like a giant startup or, a fast moving company.
How much of that feedback loop still is customized to what you're building now? And like, is that shareable?
I mean, I can give you a shareable version.
Yeah. Because I'm sure there's some nuance. If you could point out the parts that would need to get changed or deleted or whatever to make it more universal, that'd be great. Because that'd be a good grab for this. Because I think right now it's probably just like build me a skill that looks at feedback, looking at A, B, C, and D. And I'm sure that might have been your day one, and you've probably fine tuned it quite a bit since. So you probably save a lot of people some time.
Yeah, I would advise people now with the Claude record a skill is just try it out and then give it to an agent and then see what it thinks. I haven't done that personally, but something on my bucket list.
I have conversations and then build a skill based on that as a starting point. To take a skill from somebody else and bring your own, I believe it works if you understand where to nuance and stuff and do all of that. But just to put it in and rip is probably dangerous. I have a hypothesis that shared skills probably have a high churn rate because people aren't doing the extra work to make it unique to them.
Got it.
I could be way off.
Who knows, right? Who knows? We'll have to see.
Angelo, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for walking me through this. How could people get in touch with you?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. We can share my Notion page. I'm always happy to connect with folks, especially on the RevGenius community. I love what you're doing here and spreading the good word. And there's a lot of builders out there, I think, who are doing great things. And it's awesome that you're highlighting that.
Let's go.